right, so let's get started. Hi, I'm Patricia Dubroof. I'm with Assisting Hands Home Care, and we are here today to give you a dose of creativity by having our wonderful author here, who is for some reason, wait, let me get my slideshow going. Who is the most recent winner of the adult short story competition for the F. Scott Fitzgerald Literary Festival. And I'm very, very pleased to say that I was able to meet Bill when he read from his story, and we're going to talk to him and learn more about him. But I wanted to mention to you all that Assisting Hands Home Care has been around for almost 10 years. Steve and Kathy Lorberbaum started the organization to help families do a good job in helping their loved ones stay safe and engaged at home as they age. And as a person who was in the arts and healing field for 35 years, we all know that it's free medicine and it works. When you are making art, you're feeling better. You're getting emotions out, you're disappearing into that meditation state, which is so helpful, and you're making people smile. And when you're doing the work yourself, it's really an amazing process. And whether you're writing books or making paintings or listening to poetry or listening to music, those are all ways to engage in creativity. So that being a super valuable modality, if you will, that we can use to keep ourselves feeling great, I'm always honored to welcome another guest to Book Chat and talk about why they write, how they get their ideas, and how it makes them feel. So, Bill, let's get to some of those answers.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're writing these days.
Well, I'm a retired neurologist, and I started writing initially because I had stories in my head about patients that I had seen. I practiced practiced medicine for almost 50 years. And just saw a lot of interesting patients, a lot of fascinating stories, some tragic stories. And there's this creative urge, that certain of us have. And my creative urge mostly found its outlet in painting from the time I was pretty young. I mean, I started drawing when I was a kid. I used to get in trouble in school because I was drawing cartoons in my notebook instead of taking notes in class. And I'd find the teacher hovering over my shoulder, looking down at what I was drawing instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I've been drawing and, doing that kind of thing since high school.
So you learned at an early age to balance the right and left brain activities, that you had that creative outlet as you were going through high school and college and then made the choice for med school. That was all there present. Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, cool.
Right. Yes. And I remember, spending time in college. I mean, I had a sketch pad and charcoal, and I was drawing and stuff in college. I didn't paint much because I didn't have time or equipment, but pretty soon, I guess sort of toward the end of college, I remember getting acrylics and starting to paint with acrylics. I was trying different mediums. I tried pastels and acrylics and oils and, different things.
When you went to med school and then graduated and became a neurologist, did you ever think that your case notes would become fodder for material for writing books?
No, never occurred to me. Never occurred to me. I did, I remember writing a little bit along. Even when I was in med school, I remember having this novel that was sort of percolating in my head. And I remember taking notes in a notebook at odd moments. And I'm going to write this one of these days. But I never really got around to doing anything in terms of writing until, shortly before I retired. And started trying to put on paper some of these stories about patients.
And
And-
how long ago was that? What's your time frame on this?
Yeah, that was probably 5 years ago, maybe
Oh,
6 years ago.
well, and so when you first started writing, did you think I'm going to write short stories and submit them for competition? Or did you say, I'm just going to, write the great American novel and see what happens?
No, I started writing because I just had this itch, and a couple of the stories that I wrote were about patients that I was sort of carrying some emotional baggage over. People had
It had gotten through your armor.
cases that had bothered me for a long time, and so writing those was sort of a cathartic thing. It was kind of healing in a way. I really never intended to do anything more with them other than just to write the story. It was a healing process for me. And then I was taking classes at a local community college, and the community college had a art and literary review thing that they'd had for 50 years, this thing they called the Sherwood Forest Art and Literary Review. And I had taken a design course. I think I was taking the design course. And I just happened to pass a notice on a bulletin board that said, Sherwood Forest short story contest, submit your short story. And I said, well, actually, I have a short story. Maybe I'll just send that in. So I did. And then I was just shocked to get an email and said, well, your story won first prize for creative nonfiction. So I thought, well, I guess that must not have been too bad.
Yeah, I guess I can write.
I guess I have some capability to write. So then I wrote another one about a different patient, one that had bothered me even more than the first patient, because it was a story of a relatively young guy where I knew the diagnosis, but I just couldn't prove it. I knew what it was, but my technical support let me down. My radiologist colleagues, even though they were trying as hard as they could, the radiology techniques just weren't up to it. They weren't able to make the diagnosis, and he died. And that case had just bothered me for years. And so I sent that in the next year, and it won second prize. So
wow.
I said, okay. So I decided, well, maybe I should try to see if I can get some further training along these lines. So I had already been doing the artist and the watercolor thing. I'd been doing that for years at this point. I was already an artist membership of the Virginia Watercolor Society, an artist member of the Virginia Watercolor Society. So this was a new kind of creative outlet, but a lot of satisfaction in it too. So I enrolled in a program of study at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, BC. And sort of, I don't want to say poor man's, because that's not quite fair, but I thought about getting an MFA, and I decided I don't want to do that because I'm too old. It's like a waste of an MFA slot. There might be somebody younger who could get an MFA and make some use of it.
Make a career out of it.
Make a career out of it. I don't want to take up a slot, that could be better used for somebody, earlier in their life course than me. So Simon Fraser had this 1-year program in creative writing where you get a certificate in creative writing. So I enrolled in that program and got a certificate in creative writing. I guess I graduated in 2020, and they put me in a track that they call personal narrative. Fiction and personal narratives. So I was more on the personal narrative, and I started writing more of these stories. And then I was persuaded then to try to link the stories together with some memoir material. So I started some memoir material to kind of link the stories together, and wound up writing a memoir, which is still sitting on my computer. I've queried some agents, but I haven't gotten any bites on that yet. So in the process of doing that, I'm querying agents. The thing is done. It's sitting over here.
Right.
Got a bee in my bonnet to write a Civil War novel. So I just finished writing a Civil War novel, which is, it's a Civil War story told from the perspective of a medical unit. So as far as I know, that's never been done before. So.
Well, you know, Rockville is got a very famous Dr. Stonestreet, who was, you know, very involved in the surgeries that were very scary to hear about. And it's, you know, he's a really well-known figure in Rockville. You might want to look him up, get some more ideas for this.
Stonestreet was his name?
Stonestreet is his last
Okay.
name, Dr. Stonestreet. We even have his original office as part of our historic society. You know, it's like been moved to the campus of one of our most historic buildings, and it's the stories. They always have somebody enacting him when they do like history days, and it's gruesome story.
See, all these things you learn. I had no idea Gerald had a link, any kind of link to Rockville until the F. Scott Fitzgerald Literary Festival popped up on my radar.
Okay.
I didn't know that. F.
So
Scott,
that's another reason to know about Rockville. See, Rockville's an important town for
yeah,
you.
exactly. Much more than you would realize.
Yeah. So what made you, how did that application pop up? I mean, like, what was happening in your world that you saw that and decided to apply?
You're talking about for the F. Scott Fitzgerald thing?
For the literary festival.
I'm trying to remember, and most likely, I'm not positive about this, but most likely, I take courses at the Writers Center, so I get writers.
Oh, that's it then. Yeah, we're big partners with them every year.
Yeah, so I think probably it was in a Writers Center mailing. That's
great.
And I tracked it down, went to the website, and and I said, well, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained, etc. So
and that literary festival offers many great workshops with authors as well, and so an opportunity to attend those and be the award winner. That's really exciting. Congratulations.
Yes.
Bravo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So let's talk a little bit about the story that won. It's actually available for those who are interested. It's available on the F. Scott Fitzgerald website. You kind of have to find it on the website. I'm sorry, it's not super easy, but it's there. And in its totality, I thought maybe what we could do is have Bill just read a little bit from it, because I like to have the author read in his own voice. I think that's always really fun to have as a recording. And I'm just going to share. I think this is right. All right. So I'll let you go ahead and read that. And then while you're reading, I'm going to let our participants conjure up some questions. And if you, after the reading, if you want to ask the questions live, that's fine. Or if you want to put them in chat and I'll ask, that's fine too, whichever you all prefer. So go ahead, Bill, give us a little taste of how it sounds from your voice.
Patient Evelyn Fuller, a frail elderly woman, the widow of a farmer and mother of 3 who still lived alone in the family home, was brought in for neurological consultation because of visual hallucinations after telling her daughter there was something in her house. The daughter related her mom describing a man sitting on her bedroom ceiling fan, looking down on her at night when she was lying in bed, a man who just looked at her. She had also described seeing other men in the house, men of different sizes who had big teeth. This had been going on for about a year. The patient had undergone bilateral cataract surgery in the past. The surgery went well with good preservation of vision afterwards. She had no history of auditory hallucinations and no history of psychiatric disease. The daughter did describe her mom growing forgetful recently with a tendency to lose things, such as her purse. There was also a history of anxiety, misunderstanding things, and becoming upset over trivialities. The family's concerns about dementia led her primary care practitioner to start a medication to help her memory. She was on no medications likely to cause hallucinations. I said, Ms. Fuller, tell me about these things you are seeing. Tell me what it's like. Well, she said, it's men with old big teeth. And when I go to bed, I got a fan up there. And this one, he comes every night. He just sits up there on top of that fan. Do you believe that? Do you believe I see that? I see that. Do you believe it? I believe whatever you tell me. Well, this is what I'm seeing. But other people, they look at me and say, you know what they say. But I tell them, I say, well, I know what I'm seeing in my house. I'm seeing these things.
That's great. So this is a really interesting style of writing, because it is still very much like I'm hearing a case history. I'm in the field and I go to nursing homes and I go to veterans hospitals, and you look at, doctors' notes, and they're very, practical like this. You're giving a very practical description of a patient. But then there's something in there that makes me want to know more about this doctor's, like where he's coming from to be so at ease with her. And so without giving the whole story away, you want to talk a little bit more about what happens?
Well, she has a problem with dementia, and she's having visual hallucinations. And so there's a differential diagnosis that's involved both for dementia and a differential diagnosis of visual hallucinations. And at some point, those two differential diagnostic processes begin to overlap, because there's only a certain number of things that cause both dementia and visual hallucinations. So in the course of the rest of the story, I talk about, well, here's visual hallucinations, and here are the things that can cause visual hallucinations, the differential diagnosis of visual hallucinations. And then here are the things that can cause dementia, and here's the differential diagnosis of dementia. And then what are the causes of both dementia and visual hallucinations? Because now we're drilling down into this specific patient and what could be the cause of her problems. And then I discussed what her actual diagnosis is and the implications of it.
Yeah, and it's very timely. Of course, in my field, in arts and aging, this is very typical of what I connect with. I mean, there's people who have dementia and don't hallucinate. There's people who have hallucinations and don't have dementia. And, our caregivers are miracle workers because they play in that world. We've trained them. They've had experiences that have trained them so that they can come to a situation like this and not be, overwhelmed, and have ways that maybe they can help this client find some joy in the space, with acknowledging that there are men looking down on her from the fan. I mean, that's okay. It's real for her. And we talk about that a lot, that just affirming what a client sees is so healing for them, because they're being listened to and they're being appreciated for what they're seeing. And, the old school way, it was to sort of cut them off the quick and say, oh, you can't possibly be seeing that, or you can't, but I'm so glad that we've shifted into this. This is their reality. We need to acknowledge their reality. So without being a neurologist, I know that much.
It's true.
So
you're not going to talk them out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so do you feel like you have, I don't know who reads the stories and how much information you get back, but I certainly felt like when I heard this story and read it, I was like, oh, this is so important, this kind of story, because so many people don't get it. And this is such a great way to bridge the neurologist patient relationship, and at the same time, not have, I mean, it's a story, so it doesn't all have to be real. You can end it whatever way you want because you're the author. So did you feel like you were able to come to a resolution for this client differently than it would have been in real life, or was it sort of the same?
No, this was the real life resolution.
Right. Okay. Not everybody knows that, so that's why I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
It is fiction, but.
No, it's not fiction.
Oh, you're writing this as a nonfiction.
Yeah, this is a real event. This is a real patient, real event.
So that's not crystal clear.
No, that's not fiction.
Okay, but it's not clear that it's a nonfiction. So that's why I asked those questions. So that's really interesting. So I wonder if there's another thing that you would write that would clarify that. I wonder if you need to put that, sort of in some way in the story.
I don't know. I didn't feel like
So interesting.
the necessity to do that. I guess you could take it either way. The message is the same, whether it's true or whether it's made up. It's the that are in the story are factual, real things. I mean, the differential diagnosis of visual hallucinations is what it is, and the differential diagnosis of dementia is what it is.
Right.
And
Right. But even like, when you watch a documentary that's a docudrama, they say, the person and places have been changed, the names have been changed to protect the innocent or whatever.
The name. Oh, yes. The patient's name was definitely not Fuller.
Evelyn Fuller. Right.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that's what I would say. It's like, I don't know as the reader that this is all fact or part fact, or, what I mean? That's what I was trying to say. So I don't know, maybe my other folks would like to chime in here. Are there any questions for Bill about this story or his wonderful career trajectory? He's on his third career, I guess, huh? Neurologist, painter, author.
Yeah.
That's great. You don't have to all talk at once. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can see each other a little easier. Is that better? Well, I have to say, I am really excited to know what your next story. Well, I guess you talked about the Civil War book, and I'm just wondering, if you had considered going the self-published route or the hybrid self-published route. What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm gonna try to go the traditional publishing route first, and then we'll see what happens, with that.
Okay.
And if I don't have any success there, then I'll see what the opportunities are at that point. I have a really good person that I work with, Catherine Johnson. I don't know if you know Catherine Johnson or not, but I've met her through the Writers Center, and she's been
Coaching you on.
She's sort of been my writing coach,
Mhm.
the last few years, and she's been really helpful and very, very nice. And I'll look to Catherine for advice.
That's great.
40 novels, so she has a wealth of experience, and
That's a great choice. I think that's something that a lot of writers do, is they go get a mentor or somebody in the field who can help keep them going, because after the 30th rejection, do you really want to send that 31st? And yeah, you do, because it's the 31st that might be the one.
Yes, there was a great story recently in that regard about a woman who was a stewardess. She was an airline stewardess, and she had this idea for a novel that popped into her head about terrorists taking over an airliner, but instead of hijacking the airliner, they were going to somehow terrorize the pilot's family and apparently it's a very gripping tale, but she, debut author and completely unknown, couldn't get anybody interested. Her 50th query letter was finally responded to by somebody. And I think now it's in the process of being made into a movie.
Yeah, there you go.
So she had to hang in there until the 50th letter. And so
Yeah.
This is the numerous examples, Dr. Seuss with his big box of rejection letters and so on.
Right.
Right. It's just something that's a well-known tale.
Yep. And that's part of there's the act of writing, and then there's the publishing, which is the business side. And we artists are in the same boat. We could go to a gazillion galleries before we get one to accept us. And now it's not even that, it's just a different world of galleryists and how artists get their work out into the world. So it's very different for us, but books are still published. Thank goodness. They've had a renaissance, I think. More people are reading books in their physical version as well as readers. So it's really exciting. Good for you. Well, you got to keep us in the loop make sure we know if this book is coming out. Maybe we'll have a launch for you on Zoom. That would be fun.
Great.
Any other questions from our guests today? Cassandra, Phyllis, Patricia, anything you want to add?
No, I just wanted to say, just how it's really, motivating, to be thinking about our, next careers, next versions after retirement. It's, something I'm looking forward to. So thank you for, inspiring us and sharing your story.
You're welcome. I
Thanks,
think
Phyllis.
it's key, when you've had a long career, to sort of begin to prepare yourself for what you're going to do when that career comes to a close, because it is eventually going to come to a close. And I've known so many people who had done, I guess nothing but watch TV, I guess, when they weren't working. And then all of a sudden they're not working. And, I don't, you guys are all younger than me, but you may know who Walter Cronkite is.
Know him? Yes.
Yeah,
Walter
we all
Cronkite.
do.
Yeah. So he retired, and he retired earlier than he probably should have. He was still a pretty vigorous man at the time that he retired. I guess he retired when he was 65, and he was looking forward to going in and sailing. He was a big sailor. And then somebody interviewed him like 10 years later, and he said, I shouldn't have retired. You can only sail so much. He eventually got sick and tired of sailing. And I've heard that same story. People getting sick and tired of playing golf. You can only play so much golf. You can only do so much of this and so much of that. And you get tired of it. So there's lots and lots and lots of other things to do that people find fulfilling. People do a lot of volunteer work. I have a little minor philanthropy thing going with a scholarship to a nursing scholarship at community college, where I won that award. So the volunteering in a number of different ways. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do in your retirement that are fulfilling and way to spend your time doing something other than just mindless activities like watching. I don't watch TV, but I guess as The Price is Right still on, speaking about mindless things that are on TV.
Well, I appreciate your candor. I know that, grandchildren also make a difference in people's retirement plans, but now that we're living longer and healthier, they grow up too, and they're, they don't need you anymore either. So you don't want to miss any of that time, but they're out the door too. So then you're still there. Hello. Now what am I going to do?
Having a granddaughter who just turned 17.
There you go. I think I remembered that.
They do grow up and move on.
I wanted to thank Mr. Campbell for his story. So encouraging. It's very encouraging how he has kept his patients a part of his next chapter. Even though you're not doing medicine, you are healing through your writing, and your patients are still there as a part of your thoughts and what you could or were not able to do. So I think that's really nice. And then the fact that you're doing things, or you've done things for 50 years, that's very encouraging right there. And I really like the part where you said, there's more to life than, retirement doesn't mean retire from life. You don't want to go home and just sit on the sofa and just watch TV and watch life pass you by. You want to be active, you want to be engaged. So I just thank you for your motivation that you left with us today.
Welcome.
That's great. And thank you all for being here for Book Chat. It's always a pleasure to learn new things and offer educational opportunities for even a half hour. So you got your dose of creativity today. Next year, I've got a whole new set of plans for What's Your Plan? And we're going to start something called Creativity Boosters. And they're going to be 15-minute Zooms talking with folks or doing an activity that boosts your creativity. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, still continuing to run Death Cafe every month for those folks who want to talk pragmatically about death and dying and the process and the ordeals and ways that we all approach it differently culturally and economically. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Bill, thanks again. This
Welcome.
recording will come out on our website in a couple of weeks, and we'll resend it to all of our friends so that they can watch it live or on video. Thanks, everybody. Have a very happy holiday season
You as
and
well.
a very healthy new year.
Yes,
All right.
ditto.
Bye, everybody.
Merry
Great.
Christmas
Thank
to
you, Bill.
everybody.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Patricia.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.